Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest Pro Soccer Talk. And my goodness, we have a lot to go over this week. We have the closing of the transfer window, absolute madness in the Premier League. So much chaos. It's like the volcano has erupted over the last few weeks. So much drama, so many great goals, so many upsets that we have to go over. So for myself, Joe Prince-Wright, thanks for joining us. Alongside me, as you can see, is Nick Mendola in Buffalo, New York, and Andy Edwards in Kansas City. Lads, wonderful to have you on as always. At Pro Soccer Talk, we'll have you covered with everything around the Premier League. And again, we have a lot to go over. So Andy, what was your main takeaway from the opening, the last week of the season? Because that was just crazy.
Yeah, it's just the continued insanity that we saw in the first 3 weeks of the season. We thought, okay, this will go away after a little bit. Teams will kind of settle in after not having the preseason and everything, and the empty stadium still, and all of this, and new players coming in now, and just all the variables that are at play with the start of this season. We thought, okay, it'll settle itself down. It's only gotten, I don't want to say worse, it's gotten crazier. It's been much more entertaining every single week, and that Sunday has to go down as just the most shocking single day of results ever in the Premier League. It started early, it got more crazy with the second game of the day, and then it peaked with the final game of the day. And each single game said, I'll show you guys. We'll top what you just done. And they did it masterfully. It was incredible to watch. The entertainment value is through the roof, and it's no other league in the world, I don't think, can really compare to just the upset potential every single time Premier League teams take the field right now.
Nick, what about you, mate? That was absolutely chaotic.
Yeah, what is it? It just seems like this happens a lot. You get a week where there are 9 total goals, but then when they start coming, it's like every team feels that need. And I just feel like it's contagious, and it happens in the Premier League. We just get these weeks. Is it a full moon? I haven't checked the chart, but the thing that I thought was even funnier is when you go back and you look at the numbers. You guys know I love the advanced stats and whatever. That the misleading result of the weekend was Leeds Man City, but not in the way we usually discuss Man City. Leeds was a full goal plus better than Man City, and that game, like, we're not even talking about it. I think you said on Twitter the other day, we're not even talking about West Ham. We're barely talking about Leeds Man City, which was basically a heart attack for 90 minutes in the rain. So loved watching that game. The Bielsa Pep, what are we doing here moments, really good stuff. What entertainment. You just can't beat it.
You really can't. And you can't beat us chatting, lads. So Pro Soccer Talk, if you are new to watching us, we have a chat, we grab a beer. Cheers, lads, from across here in England to the USA and back. And the Premier League is so entertaining. And boy, do we love it. So the big news to focus on this week is obviously the transfer window is shut, the international transfer window in the Premier League. So I've given my grades over on Pro Soccer Talk at NBCSports.com. So feel free to check those out and then rip them to shreds, because there's a lot of debate, shall we say, over some of the grades I've given out. But I've been looking at, what teams have done the best business, who's won the window, who needed to do a little bit more. And don't forget, Premier League and Football League clubs can still do business until October the 16th at 12 p.m. Eastern time. That deadline's shut, so there's still a chance for Premier League teams to get a few players out, bring some in from maybe the Championship or even lower down. So a few deals to happen, but the big international deals, the big ones for all the big boys, have been done. So Nick Mendola, I'm going to start with you. Which team won the summer window in the Premier League?
It's really tight for me. Really, really tight for me, but I'm going to go with Tottenham. And the reason I want to go with Spurs, maybe it's because I just watched a Jose Mourinho video that blew my mind, but Sergio Reguilon, first of all, that gets the heart eyes emoji for me. I think he's exactly what Mourinho wants in a guy on the left side. The video of, and who knows what's going to happen, but the video of Carlos Vinicius, I mean, he looks like Richarlison with quicker feet. I'm so excited to see him as a guy they may want around for 20 minutes at a time. Come on. I mean, you got Bale, Bergwijn, Son, Kane. Lamella's looked great this year, I thought. And then after all that, maybe Dele figuring it out. So they're going to challenge defenders with so many different attack styles. And I haven't even named all the moves they made. So it's not just about the 6 goals. I think they've pushed the right buttons, and we'll get into it in my 3 things we learned. But Moo showed us a thing or two this weekend.
Andy, do you agree with that on Spurs? And is there another team you think came out on top?
Yeah, it's hard not to agree. And then to finish the list there for Nick, Matt Doherty, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg, who was sensational on Sunday against Man United. 10-man, Man United, of course. But he's exactly, to Nick's point, he's exactly the player that Mourinho would want in that position there in front of the back line. He fits perfectly. He's the player that they've not had the last couple of seasons under Pochettino, under Mourinho. So they're too deep at every single position now. And when was the last time you could say that about Spurs? Even at striker, they have a backup striker for the rest of this season. It's unprecedented. Really, my only question about them is now when it goes wrong, what does Mourinho blame? Because it's always, I need this, I need that, I need this, I need that. It's on him now. He's got everything that he could ask for and everything that he has asked for. Another team that I thought did exceptional business in this window, Aston Villa. Maybe better than anybody else in the league. I think I would put them right up there with Spurs, with Everton as well. We saw what Ollie Watkins did against Liverpool on Sunday with the hat trick. That might be the high watermark for him coming over for $36 million from Brentford. I think he'll be a useful player. I think situationally, if they set up right to counterattack against teams, that he could be really good. Ross Barkley with a goal on his debut, an assist or two as well. Everything that they've done so far to start the season has just seemed to work. And Dean Smith is kind of a project builder. He did that at Brentford. And so he needed, I think, a little bit of time, maybe that first season, to get himself settled in, start getting the team and the squad built the way that he wants it. And once he gets it fully there, we might see Aston Villa kind of solidify themselves as a mid-table side for a couple seasons before then they can look and say, okay, what can we do now to kind of push on top 8, top 7 type of push? And so I've been very, very impressed with not only what they've done on the field, but in the market as well.
I'm going to go with Everton. I think talking about teams who are pushing themselves onto the next level, did a lot of their business early, which I really liked, with Alan coming in, Abdoulaye Doucouré, really just rebuilding that whole midfield. And then James Rodriguez, I mean, come on. He's been brilliant. If he can stay fit, he could be the signing of the whole season, or the best signing Everton have made in a long, long time, because they brought in so many players, but he loves playing under Ancelotti. You can see the smile on his face, and he's just got that extra class to make all the players around him better. Calvert-Lewin scoring. So I love what Everton have done. And then I think the two London Giants as well, Arsenal and Chelsea. Yeah. Obviously, Chelsea have spent a lot of money. I was at Chelsea Crystal Palace when they comprehensively beaten 4-0 at Stamford Bridge. Havertz and Werner are still kind of settling in, but Thiago Silva, after the little mishap against West Brom, played a lot better. His positioning, his experience, that really seemed to rub off on Zuma. Chilwell was flying down the flank and got a goal and an assist. And I think Chelsea have done a really good job of spending the money wisely. It's a lot of money, but as we said before, this has been building up for a couple of transfer windows now, so they've made the most of it and done it. And in Arsenal, decent window overall with Willian and Gabriel coming in, but then obviously a party, if you will. That really kind of capped things off with Thomas Partey coming in. He's the player that they needed. So that's the teams who did well and won the window. Lads, pick one team each who needed to do more. I already know who you're probably going to go with here, but Nick, who needed to do more in the transfer window for you?
I'm gonna leave you guys the big dogs, and I'm gonna go with Burnley. You talk about Aston Villa and how they could solidify themselves in mid-table and then build from that. And I realize bigger historic club, more resources, all of that is true. But whereas Sean Dyche has outperformed expectations. I remember the Sports World article we had a few years ago where basically he did an interview in a closet with one light bulb. I just wonder, at what point do they just expect him to keep grinding? Like Ashley Barnes kicked a guy from Newcastle in the midsection yesterday. That's how they get it done, or a couple days ago. That's how they get it done. I just want, what are the expectations? Is Dale Stephens going to save your club? Do you expect one man to keep getting his players to play way beyond themselves? And I don't get it, and I'm very worried about them.
Andy, who are you worried about?
I'll take the easy big boy, the one that Nick teed up and left for us. Manchester United. What are you doing? What have you been doing all summer? What did you do last summer? What did you do the summer before that and the summer before that? We talked a little bit last week about not having a plan for how you're going to build your squad, how you're going to spend tens and even hundreds of millions of dollars on players in the transfer market. That seems, like criminal negligence at this point, the way that United have gone about their business, the way that they seem to do it almost publicly for show to appease people without ever really achieving anything. The Jadon Sancho pursuit all summer long, it never felt like they got close at all. Like it never felt like it got past, we'll give you 70 or 80 million. Yeah, well, we want 120 or 130 million. Okay, well, we'll give you 72 million. It never progressed for them. And we were talking a little bit on Monday, and Joe, you said something that I thought made a lot of sense. At some point, they're going to end up paying whatever it is that Dortmund want for Jadon Sancho. It seems like it's a foregone conclusion. So why not do it now? Why not get him in now? And even if they would have got him in on Monday on deadline day, you've still wasted 3 games of the season. You've still wasted any buildup to the season. It's just, it seems so sporadic, like they're throwing darts at a board to make decisions at that club. And then they go spend, almost $40 million, $30 million on an 18-year-old that, all due respect to him, nobody's really heard of. And he's going to then arrive in January with the hopes of, oh, we're struggling a little bit. Can this guy be the spark that we need? Can he save our season? The answer is probably no.
No, I think the lack of deals and kind of just scrambling on the final day of the window, raveled into the 6-1 defeat at home by Tottenham 24 hours earlier. Just, you wonder what's going through Ed Woodward's mind. As you said before, Jadon Sancho, the big name recruits they always seem to be linked with. Is that almost something with them being listed as a company on the New York Stock Exchange to keep, expectations high, to kind of keep that machine and wheel turning? Because at the moment, all it's doing is creating problems for Ed Woodward. You're being linked all summer long. As you said, you look negligent. You look like you're not doing your job properly. And I think that Manchester United now have a really imbalanced squad. They brought in Cavani.
Yes.
And they've gone all out to strengthen areas that didn't need strengthening, basically.
Donny van de Beek is a good player. He's a very good player. He's the same player as Pogba and Bruno Fernandes in the things that he does. He is a ball-progressing central midfielder. They have 3 ball progressors, whether dribbling with Pogba and van de Beek or an incisive passer with Fernandes. They have no one to get them the ball when the other team has it. This
goes back to the whole question. I'm sure we'll talk about it a lot this season, but director of football. They need one. They need a philosophy. It's none of it's connected. None of it's joined up. I feel a little bit sorry for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer at times because you can clearly see what he wants, but it's not happening, not being done. So I'm going to focus on Man City as well. I don't think they got the defenders in they needed. Ruben Diaz is good. Nathan Ake is good. But I still don't think in the fullback positions they strengthened. So this is an opportunity to kind of close that gap on Liverpool. They haven't done that. And I'm looking around at West Ham, poor old David Moyes. I mean, they didn't get really anybody in, obviously through the windows. Kufel come in at right back, and Fulham as well seemed very haphazard last minute, kind of scrambling around for centre backs and defenders. I think it's going to be a long, hard season for them as well. So, quick hit to finish with on the segment. Nick, your best signing of the summer transfer window. Go ahead.
Thomas. Not because I think he's the best player of the bunch, but he's exactly what Arsenal needed. When everyone says that and no one really argues because they've been missing that dude for 2 years? Longer? I think it's a great move. I love it.
Andy, what about you?
Yeah, in theory, I agree with that. But I'll say this. I don't think you can discount the Diego Simeone effect of a defensive midfielder or a defender coming from that club and then going somewhere without that similar defensive structure around him and expect the exact same success and performances from that. I'm going to take
I agree.
of a long C approach.
But quickly, I like Gabriel behind him. I think Arteta is a smart coach for that. And also, don't forget, the rumor was about a month and a half ago that Atletico Madrid, who doesn't pay a lot of people a lot of money, offered to double his wages to keep him there. And he was like, no, I want to test things. So I think they see his value. So I agree with you on the whole, but micro, let's see what happens.
Yeah. Let me take another easy one here real quick. I'll just say James Rodriguez. He's been, with all due respect to Everton, without the politics stuff that seems to be attached to James and the injuries the last couple of years, He has no business being at a club like Everton. Everton have no business having a player of his. We're 6 years removed from him being one of the best players, one of the 3 or 4 best players in the world at that World Cup down in Brazil. And he was destined for super duper stardom, and it just didn't quite happen. And now he's at Everton. Good for Everton. Really good for Everton.
Yeah, I was going to take him. It's the perils of going last in this situation for me. So I'm going to go for, I think that kind of sneaky good, but Højbjerg could turn out to be one of the most important signings that Tottenham have made in a long time. All the other names are kind of flashier, but as we saw against Man United, he's a ball-winning machine. He's a Mourinho player. He's the general they've needed in the heart of midfield there. We know they're good going forward. All they need is another centre-back, and I think they're really going to be set up to contend in the years to come. So that's our look at the transfer window, the summer of madness that it was. The saga's dragged on. I've gone and looked at transfer grades over on ProSoccerTalk at NBCSports.com. So head on over there, see which grade I've given your team, and then we can have some more banter and analysis about it going forward. So next segment I want to discuss is 3 things we learned from the last week of the Premier League. We do it every week. We do it on every game. Nick, Andy, and I give our 3 things we learned and analysis on every single game during the season. So head over to ProSoccerTalk for that. This is difficult, chaps, because as we said, the whole season has just been building to this chaotic mess each weekend, and each weekend seems to be crazier than the one before it. In terms of what I learned that Liverpool's defensive problems may be worse than we thought. With Alisson getting injured, he may be out for 6 to 7 weeks, they're saying. That means Adrian's got to come in. I don't think they're going to be able to bring in anybody else. They could potentially bring in a goalkeeper from the Championship to be a backup, don't forget, before that window closes. So a Jack Butland or someone like that could, in theory, come in. But they're in trouble. I think the way that Joe Gomez got bullied by Watkins and Grealish, and Van Dijk was pulled all over the place, and Alexander-Arnold had a real off day. I'm looking at Liverpool's defence, and it's not for the first time this season that they've been struggling. You know, against Leeds on the opening day, conceded 3 goals. Jurgen Klopp was then bristling recently, you know, after Roy Keane said that they were sloppy at the back, and he said they weren't, but it clearly happened.
They were.
Yeah, but they were, like, you know. But we don't want to upset Klopp. He's a nice bloke. We all love a bit of Klopp, but there are clear issues there for Liverpool, and I think Alisson being injured is going to highlight that and magnify it more. And all of a sudden, teams in and around the top 6 of the Premier League are like, you know what? We're a bit buoyed here. We maybe Liverpool aren't the machine that's going to storm to back-to-back titles that we think they are. So that's what I learned. It's early in the season, like we said, but these sweeping sort of analysis topics that we can come up with, I think Liverpool are going to struggle defensively this season.
It'll be interesting to see if Fabinho ends up back there. Joel should be back soon, right? But Lovren's gone. So I have not been a huge Gomez guy. I know he had his moment with Sterling, but big concerns there. For me, Joe, the thing I learned this weekend, also Liverpool 1 clean sheet in league play since July 8th, and that was against 10-man Chelsea. Sorry, I forgot. I wanted to get that out there. Worth noting. Speaking of no clean sheets and entertaining, Spurs, 8 games in 22 days. That was, whatever you want to say. Look, Mourinho, sometimes when he complains, maybe we downgrade his concerns because it's him. But that was a real concern. Bulgaria, Macedonia, and the most exotic, Southampton. 26 goals scored, 9 conceded. Lost to Everton that could have been a draw with Newcastle that should have been a 3-goal win, even without VAR. Would we have said the same thing about clean sheets if it was happening to Liverpool in that run? Vintage Mourinho this weekend. Looked at
Brilliant.
United, put out Højbjerg, Sissoko, and Ndombele, and said, "Go be monsters. Make their lives miserable. You're physical. You're fast. You're strong." And to me, as much as we'll talk about Kane and Son, it was those guys who, I mean, they were. United was nowhere to be found in the midfield. And if you look at the numbers, Pogba actually tried to get stuck in, and he couldn't. He couldn't find his way. So, you know, that run of fixtures, again, was really annoying to hear about, but they managed it with a draw and a loss. So Mourinho showed us he can still cook up a plan. Now, can he do it again and again and again? That's the huge question.
Andy, what about you? What did you learn over the last week?
Yeah, it's all good and fun times for Spurs until Eric Dyer ends up back in the midfield. And that's when you know Mourinho's gone full
I thought you were
Mourinho.
going to say back in the toilet then after his mishap.
No. But he'll end up back in the midfield within the next month, and then there'll be 3 defensive midfielders out there, and we'll be talking about, oh, how negative is Mourinho? He's turned Spurs into this and that.
Just enjoy it while it lasts.
Yes, let's enjoy it. I'll kind of go back to what Joe's point was on Liverpool a little bit, talking about defensive struggles. It's more of a question, I guess. At what point have we gone too far with high defensive lines in the Premier League and all over the world as well? It's kind of a common thread with some of these shocking results that we're seeing, whether it's City losing 5-2 to Leicester last weekend, Liverpool losing 7-2 to Aston Villa this weekend, Man United losing to Crystal Palace in week 2, 3-1, and even Liverpool struggling to beat Leeds 4-3 in the opening weekend. If you watch the goals conceded by those teams, it's a lot of one-on-one with 40, 50, 60 yards of space for the defender to cover. That's a really, really terrible island for a defender to be on. And Nick pointed out Joe Gomez and what Ollie Watkins did to him on Sunday. The second goal for Watkins was just it was criminal abuse is what it was. He turned him left, he turned him right, left, and then went back. He had absolutely no chance in that much space with a player like Watkins running at him. We asked center backs to be passers, build the attack out of the back. We ask them to cover half of the entire field anytime that possession is lost. At what point are we putting too much on these center backs and letting the fullbacks creep forward into possession and the defensive midfielders push on, and it's just them back there? It's just them, and there's too much attacking quality, especially in this league, for them to man up one-on-one or one-on-two in some situations with half of an entire field behind them. I think some teams maybe need to rethink just a little bit. And I understand why they do it. The possession's so important. But if you're going to concede 5 or 7 every time out, maybe you don't want to do that.
So there's a look at what we learned from the last week in the Premier League. Hey, at least we're not talking about VAR or handball situations this week. So that's not bad, right? Okay, moving on. I'm going to rank my top 5 players from week 4 in the Premier League. Check out ProSoccerTalk and NBCSports.com. I've got my full list of 20 player power rankings. So you can go and agree, disagree, whatever you want with them. But here's my 5-1 top 5, and then we'll have a quick chat with Andy and Nick about what they think about my selection. So number 5, I've gone for Mikel Antonio, scored a goal away for West Ham in that big 3-0 win at Leicester. He's a constant threat on the break. He's someone who I think kind of gets overlooked for the England call-up situation. And they asked him, what is he going to do over the international break now that he hasn't got much to do? After that big display at Leicester, he said, you know what, I've got so many options. I could go to the pub, but I have a bar in my house, so I'll probably just have a few beers there. So great character, great player, and he is the main reason West Ham have turned things around right now. So he's number 5. Number 4, Ollie Watkins, scored a hat-trick for Aston Villa against Liverpool. Debut Premier League goals. Could have had 4 or 5. He hit the bar, played really well, and he seems to be bringing out the best in Jack Grealish and others. And he's that one forward that Villa really needed to stretch defences so that their best players can get on the ball and create. So what a signing from Brentford. Looks like a really, really good acquisition from Aston Villa, amongst a lot of good buys they've had this summer. Number 3, James Rodriguez. He remains in our top 5, very steady. 2 goals and an assist in that entertaining win, once again, against Brighton. Had a superb start to life at Everton. Really, he is the key for me to their top 4 credentials, if you like. Can they hang on? Can they go throughout the season and be, make the most of perhaps Chelsea or Man United slipping up, or even Man City, rebuilding? Can they be that team that just hangs in there like Leicester did last season and makes the most of a fast start? So James is great, makes all the other Everton players around him better. And I think he's going to be in my top 5 for most of the season, to be honest, lads. Number 2, Jack Grealish, 2 goals, multiple assists. Of course, ran the show for Villa, as he always does. Against Liverpool, what I liked was the fact that Watkins was stretching them in behind. Grealish, Barkley and McGinn were buzzing around together, almost in unison. And he really has had the pressure taken off him, I think, with these new players coming in at Villa. And he has a new lease of life. So Grealish is in number 2. And then number 1, Harry Kane, 2 goals, an assist. His quick thinking, his creativity just rips Man United apart. And he seems hungry. He seems sharp. He seems like he's just... Andy said it before, he's benefited from having a long time off before Project Restart. not being injured for a while now. His vision continues to impress me, his hunger, his drive. And I think now Tottenham, sort of their form is epitomized by Harry Kane's rejuvenation, if you like. And he's top of my power rankings in the Premier League this week. So a couple of honourable mentions I want to say. Ben Chilwell, John McGinn, Heung-min Son, Abdoulaye Doucouré, Raheem Sterling, and Højbjerg from Spurs. I mean, you could have most of the Spurs or Aston Villa team after the last week. But gents, anything you'd argue with there? Any other players you think should have made my top 5?
Sure. I have one, and it's a sentimental one because I like style. Guys, I think Alan St. Maximin is the most entertaining player in the Premier League.
For good and for bad.
Yeah, human highlight reel.
Yep.
Steve Bruce almost has no choice but to just tell him, go out there and do your thing. But what I love about him is I do watch a lot of Newcastle. I got a soft spot for him. He wins duels. He gets stuck in, which you don't see a lot of stylish players like that do. Gets fouled all the time. And then this week on that left side, the numbers were insane. He only had 41 touches. 3 of those were key passes. He missed 2 passes, and he plays in the attacking third. So I think he's a lot of fun. He's the sort of player you love your team to have. I worry about him getting hurt because he gets fouled all the time. And Burnley's Ashley Barnes is now like he'll never make a team of the week for me. He could score 6 goals and I'd be like, yeah, but he's dirty. So that happened this week. ASM, that's my guy.
Fair play. Andy, anybody else you'd like to add quickly?
Yeah, I have no one to add. I would just like to point out that I'm very happy for Jack Grealish to have players of similar quality to him at Villa now. He just looks rejuvenated, like it's a whole new life that he's now living with quality players around him, and he's not had it. And I just love when a player comes up at a club and gets to have success there and stays there the way that he has done. And had he gone to United or Spurs the way that he could have done, he might have gone there and done well, but it wouldn't have been the same story. And so just to have them kind of turn things around with their transfer business and the results they're getting right now, I'm very happy for Aston Villa.
There you go. There's the Premier League player power rankings from this week. Go to ProSoccerTalk on NBCSports.com to check out the top 20 and give me some stick about that. Now we're going to focus on the Americans abroad. My goodness, what a great few weeks it's been for the US men's national team stars over in Europe. At Pro Soccer Talk, Andy rounded up all the action from the latest US national team players playing all across Europe now. Germany, Spain, England, France. We have you covered. So each week we'll be doing that. So that's a really cool piece. In the Premier League, I was at Chelsea Crystal Palace at Stamford Bridge, watched that game live. Christian Pulisic came on for the final, sort of 10 minutes or so. He debuted that number 10 shirt that he's been handed for his great performances last season. I was sat about 15 yards to his left because with the sort of all the distancing, the press box is spread out now, so you're almost on the Chelsea bench. So I had a kind of a nod with him and good to see him back out there. I had my University of Pittsburgh hat on, and I think he's a Penn State guy, unless I'm mistaken. So there was a bit of a rivalry there.
Oh, no.
But we got along nicely, so that was totally fine. But elsewhere in the Premier League, we had a Premier League debut for Anthony Robertson at Fulham. Tim Ream started alongside him in that narrow defeat away at Wolverhampton Wanderers. And DeAndre Yedlin seems like could be leaving Newcastle, but for the Premier League sort of portions of the Americans abroad, it's starting to ramp up now. Been a rough few years with not many players doing well, but Andy, Nick, I mean, take it away from here. I know Bundesliga, La Liga, and Liga, I've seen a lot of US players having some notable moments over the last week.
Yeah, it's obviously not super great for us that the Americans have kind of exited the Premier League at the moment, but I do think it has been hugely beneficial to them to go to places where, you know, you get a little bit more time, not just in the team, but to get into the team as well. You get to settle a little bit in places like Germany, especially. They just seem to have completely figured out the human side of player acquisition as well, how to settle a human rather than just a player into a club and a team. And you just don't quite see that in the Premier League because it's so demanding. You have to immediately be able to contribute. And these American players, a lot of them are so young, you know, and so I think that's why we're seeing so many in Germany. And I love it. You know, with Gio Reyna getting the 3, he's 17 years old. He's not even signed a professional contract yet. And he's got 3 assists in a Bundesliga game at the weekend. It's absolutely incredible, what he has done in a very short period of time. And obviously the comparisons to Pulisic, the quick astronomical rise at that club especially. And we see what Pulisic has turned into. You have to, I think of all the young American players anywhere in the world right now, I think he's the one you've probably got to be the most excited about because of, one, the age, two, the mind that he clearly possesses and the way that he controls the game at, again, 17 years old. I don't know if I mentioned that. And he's at a place that will nurture that and encourage it. They're not going to beat that out of him like a lot of clubs in the world would do. They are going to further that. And I just hope, I cross my fingers and my toes that we, as the U.S. men's national team, can figure out how to use that properly come World Cup qualifying and hopefully the World Cup.
Nick, can you round up how the other
just
Americans did in the Bundesliga, La Liga, and Liga?
Yeah, so I'm worried a little bit about the World Cup because how is Will Trapp going to fit into this equation for Greg Berhalter? Sorry, Will. I loved Reyna, but Josh Sargent is getting 80-plus minutes every game. And how's this for a nod? Bremen sold Milo Rashica, right? So that is some faith in the youngster. Chris Richards getting a start at right back. He's been mostly a center back for Bayern, but they buy Bounassar, who's a right back. I don't know if that's going to be a thing for them. John Brooks at Wolfsburg, they have allowed 1 goal through 3 games, and they have some really good center backs around him, and he's still playing. So good sign, and he's been healthy. That's the big thing with him. I'll save Sergino Dest for last because he's the only guy going in La Liga. But Tim Weah off the bench again, center forward for the most part. He's only getting mere minutes, but over a month he's been healthy, and that is such a big thing. Wrapping it up before we get back to Dest, Anthony Robinson, here's why I'm excited. If Fulham's center backs work, he gets a lot more freedom because he had to do a lot of backtracking this weekend. And if any of those guys that they brought in do anything, I like him. Miazga to Anderlecht. How about that? Vincent Kompany's his boss. Not bad for a center back. Cameron Carter-Vickers, he's going to go somewhere. But back to Dest, guys. This is an American, 19 years old, getting a half hour. And I think it was Andy who mentioned it on Twitter. He was living in Sevilla's end. This was not a stay back, right back, Sergio Roberto. This was go get it, son. And they're 3 games away from El Clasico at the new camp. 3 games away. Let's see them.
It's amazing. So I want to finish up the segment by giving you my U.S. men's national team starting lineup right now, if I had to choose. And then you guys can debate in the comments and everything else. But I would say Zach Steffen in goal because he's been playing well at Man City. Had a couple of outings now in the League Cup. Dest at right back. Chris Richards, obviously, Bayern Munich, getting some really big minutes and got his first start over the weekend. Did well. Played at right back, centre back, kind of plays in those 2 positions. John Brooks at centre back, Anthony Robinson at left back, and then midfield 2 holders, Weston McKennie at Juventus. Obviously didn't play this weekend, but is doing really well in Serie A. Tyler Adams alongside him. And then look at this attacking 3. Pulisic left wing, Gio Reyna as a number 10, and then Timothy Weah coming off the other flank. Not bad. And then Josh Sargent up top. So that's my US national team lineup. Let us know in the comments what you guys would do. But this looks like the start of a very bright period for US national team fans. A lot of players spread across all the top leagues and a lot of top clubs in Europe and the Champions League and Europa League. So good times on the horizon, we hope, for the US national team. And we'll have you covered on Pro Soccer Talk each week so you can check out how those Americans abroad are doing. So all that's left for me to say is from Nick, Andy, and I, thanks for joining us on Pro Soccer Talk this week. It's been absolutely chaotic across the Premier League. We've loved it. Now we're going into international break. You have a bit of a breather, but there's a lot of action going on, and we'll have all the international coverage on Pro Soccer Talk this week. So thanks for joining us, guys, lads. Pleasure as always to chat, and we'll speak to you all very soon. Cheers.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe. Make sure you subscribe to watch highlights all season long and always join us every weekend at 7 a.m. on NBCSN for Premier League mornings. Plus, make sure you subscribe to Peacock Premium as well, where you can watch exclusively live 175 games and same-day on-demand replays of all 380 Premier League matches as well.